Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. Brett settled into her desk, smoothing down her navy pencil skirt. She glanced furtively at the closed door of Annabella's office, her heart skipping a beat at the thought of their secret relationship. As the company's head secretary, Brett prided herself on her efficiency and professionalism, but her feelings for her boss added a layer of complexity to her everyday routine. The tap-tap of heels against the polished floor announced Maria's arrival. Brett's coworker breezed in, her face aglow with excitement. "Brett, you won't believe what happened last night." Brett looked up, a practiced smile on her face. "What's got you so worked up this morning?" Maria thrust out her left hand, a glittering diamond catching the fluorescent light. "Greg proposed! We're getting married!" "Oh my goodness! Congratulations!" Brett exclaimed, standing to give Maria a hug. As she embraced her friend, a pang of longing shot through her chest. Would she ever experience that kind of joy herself? "Thank you! I'm so thrilled!" Maria gushed. "And I want you to be one of my bridesmaids. Will you?" Brett's eyes widened in surprise. "Me? Are you sure? Of course, you're one of my closest friends here. Please say yes." Hesitating for a moment, Brett nodded. "I'd be honored, Maria. Thank you." As Maria chattered on about her plans, Brett's mind raced. She'd never been part of a wedding party before. Would the other bridesmaids accept her? Would she fit in? The door to Annabella's office opened, and Brett's boss emerged, her auburn hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. "Good morning, ladies. What's all the excitement about?" Maria bounded over to Annabella, showing off her ring. "I'm engaged." "Congratulations, Maria. That's wonderful news," Annabella said warmly. Her eyes flicked to Brett, a silent question in their depths. Brett gave an imperceptible nod. "Maria's asked me to be a bridesmaid," she explained. "How lovely," Annabella replied, her tone neutral. "I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job." As Annabella returned to her office, Brett couldn't help but wonder what her lover was thinking. They'd been careful to keep their relationship under wraps, but participating in Maria's wedding would put Brett in the spotlight. Would it jeopardize their secret? The weeks flew by in a flurry of wedding preparations. Brett found herself swept up in dress fittings, flower selections, and countless planning meetings. The other bridesmaids were friendly enough, but Brett always felt a step removed, as if there was an invisible barrier between them. One afternoon, as Brett was helping Maria address invitations, her coworker looked up with a thoughtful expression. "Brett, can I ask you something personal?" Brett's hand stilled, her pen hovering over an envelope. "Of course. What is it?" Maria hesitated, then plunged ahead. "Are you and Annabella together?" The pen slipped from Brett's fingers, leaving an inky streak across the pristine paper. "What makes you think that?" "I've noticed the way you look at each other," Maria said gently. "And sometimes when you think no one's watching, there's this connection between you." Brett's heart raced. She'd thought they'd been so careful. "Maria, It's okay," Maria assured her. "I'm not judging. I just wanted you to know that if it's true, I support you both." Tears pricked at Brett's eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "We are, but please, you can't tell anyone. It could cause problems for both of us at work." Maria reached out and squeezed Brett's hand. "Your secret is safe with me. I'm happy for you, truly." The weight that lifted from Brett's shoulders was immense. She hadn't realized how much the secrecy had been weighing on her until that moment. As the wedding day approached, Brett found herself caught between excitement for her friend and a growing sense of unease. The bachelorette party loomed large, a night of female bonding that filled her with both anticipation and dread. The evening of the party arrived, and Brett stood before her mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. She'd chosen a deep green cocktail dress that hugged her curves, her long brown hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. With a final swipe of lipstick, she steeled herself for the night ahead. The bar was packed when Brett arrived, the other bridesmaids already deep into their second round of drinks. Maria spotted her and waved her over enthusiastically. "Brett, you look gorgeous!" Maria exclaimed, pulling her into a hug. "Come on, we've got a shot waiting for you." Brett smiled tightly, accepting the small glass of clear liquid. As the night wore on, she found herself drifting to the edges of the group, nursing her drink and watching the others laugh and dance. The carefree joy on their faces only highlighted her own feelings of otherness. A hand on her arm startled her from her thoughts. She turned to find Annabella standing beside her, concern etched on her face. "Are you okay?" Annabella asked softly. Brett shook her head, fighting back tears. "I don't belong here," she whispered. Annabella glanced around, ensuring no one was paying attention to them. "Do you want to leave?" Nodding gratefully, Brett allowed Annabella to guide her towards the exit. They made their excuses to Maria, who was too caught up in the celebration to notice Brett's distress. Once outside, Brett took a deep breath of the cool night air. "I'm sorry," she said. "I thought I could do this, but you have nothing to apologize for," Annabella assured her, taking Brett's hand. "Let's go home." They walked in silence, their fingers intertwined. When they reached Brett's apartment, Annabella pulled her close, enveloping her in a comforting embrace. "You are beautiful and strong and worthy of love," Annabella murmured into Brett's hair. "Don't ever forget that." Brett clung to her, allowing the tears to fall at last. In Annabella's arms, she felt safe, accepted, whole. The morning of Maria's wedding dawned bright and clear. Brett stood before the mirror once again, this time dressed in the pale pink bridesmaid gown they'd chosen months ago. She smoothed her hands over the silky fabric, trying to quell the butterflies in her stomach. A knock at the door interrupted her nervous preening. She opened it to find Annabella, stunning in a royal blue dress that made her eyes sparkle. "You look incredible," Annabella breathed, stepping into the apartment. Brett managed a small smile. "So do you. I just hope I can make it through this day without falling apart." Annabella cupped Brett's face in her hands. "You are stronger than you know, and I'll be right there with you, even if I can't be by your side." With a deep breath, Brett nodded. "Okay, let's do this." The church was a flurry of activity when they arrived. Brett was immediately whisked away to join the other bridesmaids, leaving Annabella to find her seat among the other guests. As they lined up for the processional, Brett's nerves threatened to overwhelm her. The music swelled, and one by one, the bridesmaids began their walk down the aisle. When it was Brett's turn, she focused on putting one foot in front of the other, her eyes fixed on a point at the back of the church. As she passed the rows of guests, she caught sight of Annabella, who gave her an encouraging smile. The ceremony itself was beautiful, Maria radiant as she exchanged vows with Greg. Brett stood with the other bridesmaids, her bouquet clasped tightly in her hands. As she watched the happy couple, a mix of emotions swirled within her, joy for her friend, but also a deep sadness and longing for what she feared she might never have. At the reception, Brett did her best to participate in the festivities, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. She watched as couples twirled on the dance floor, their laughter and happiness a stark contrast to the ache in her chest. "May I have this dance?" Brett turned to find Annabella standing beside her, hand outstretched. For a moment, Brett hesitated, aware of the eyes that might be on them, but the love and acceptance in Annabella's gaze gave her courage. Taking Annabella's hand, Brett allowed herself to be led onto the dance floor. As they swayed to the music, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. In that moment, it was just the two of them, two hearts beating as one. "I love you," Annabella whispered, her lips close to Brett's ear. Brett's breath caught in her throat. It was the first time either of them had said those words aloud. "I love you too," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. As the song ended, they reluctantly parted, but something had shifted. Brett felt lighter, more at peace with herself and her place in the world. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of toasts, cake cutting, and more dancing. When it was time to see Maria and Greg off on their honeymoon, Brett found herself genuinely smiling as she hugged her friend goodbye. "Thank you for being part of our day," Maria said warmly. "It meant so much to have you here." "Thank you for including me," Brett replied, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'm so happy for you both." As the newlyweds drove away in a shower of rice and well-wishes, Brett felt Annabella's presence beside her. Without a word, they linked hands, no longer caring who might see. "Ready to go home?" Annabella asked softly. Brett nodded, suddenly exhausted but content. "Yes, let's go home." As they walked away from the reception hall, Brett realized that home wasn't just a place. It was wherever she and Annabella were together. The road ahead might not be easy, but with Annabella by her side, Brett felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The following Monday, Brett returned to work with a renewed sense of purpose. The office buzzed with post-wedding gossip, but she found she didn't mind the chatter as much as she'd expected. Her experience at the wedding had given her a new perspective on her place in the world. As she settled at her desk, arranging files and checking her emails, Maria burst into the office, her face glowing with the radiance of a newly married woman. "Brett, oh my goodness, I have so much to tell you about the honeymoon," Mariah exclaimed, perching on the edge of Brett's desk. Brett smiled warmly at her friend. "I can't wait to hear all about it. How was Bali?" As Maria launched into a detailed account of her tropical getaway, Brett found herself genuinely interested and engaged. The jealousy and sadness she'd felt at the wedding had faded, replaced by a genuine happiness for her friend's joy. Midway through Maria's story about a disastrous snorkeling expedition, Annabella emerged from her office. "Good morning, ladies," she said, her eyes lingering on Brett for just a moment longer than necessary. "Maria, welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful honeymoon." "It was amazing, thank you," Maria gushed. Then, with a conspiratorial wink at Brett, she added, "And I hope you two had a nice weekend as well." Brett felt her cheeks flush, but Annabella merely smiled. "It was lovely, thank you," she replied smoothly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a conference call in 5 minutes." As Annabella retreated to her office, Maria turned to Brett with a grin. "So, things are good between you two?" Brett nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "Yes, they are. Thank you for being so understanding and supportive." Maria reached out and squeezed Brett's hand. "That's what friends are for. Now, tell me everything." Over the next few weeks, Brett found herself settling into a new rhythm at work. Her relationship with Annabella remained private, but the burden of complete secrecy had lifted. Maria's acceptance had given her the courage to be more open with a select few coworkers, and to her surprise, she found nothing but support. One afternoon, as Brett was preparing for a big presentation, her phone buzzed with a text from Annabella. "Dinner tonight? I have something important to discuss." Brett's heart raced as she typed out a quick affirmative reply. What could Annabella want to talk about? Her mind spun with possibilities as she tried to focus on her work for the rest of the day. When evening came, Brett met Annabella at their favorite Italian restaurant, a cozy little place tucked away on a side street. As they were seated at a secluded corner table, Brett couldn't help but notice that Annabella seemed nervous, fidgeting with her napkin and avoiding eye contact. "Is everything okay?" Brett asked, reaching across the table to still Annabella's restless hands. Annabella took a deep breath, finally meeting Brett's gaze. "Everything's fine. More than fine, actually. I've been doing a lot of thinking since Maria's wedding about us and our future." Brett's pulse quickened. "Oh? I love you, Brett," Annabella said softly. "And I don't want to hide that anymore. I've spoken with HR, and while there are some protocols we'll need to follow, there's no policy against us being together openly." Brett felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. "Are you sure about this? What about your career?" Annabella squeezed Brett's hands. My career is important, but you're more important. I want to build a life with you, Brett. No more hiding, no more secrets. I love you too, Brett whispered, her voice choked with emotion. More than I ever thought possible. As they left the restaurant hand in hand, Brett felt as if she were walking on air. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities and promise. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen and accepted for who she was. The next day at work, Brett and Annabella called a team meeting to address their relationship. As they stood before their colleagues, hands clasped, Brett felt a mixture of nervousness and pride. We wanted to be transparent with all of you, Annabella began. Brett and I are in a committed relationship. We've taken the necessary steps with HR to ensure there's no conflict of interest. But we felt it was important to tell you directly. The room was silent for a moment, and Brett held her breath. Then Maria stood up, a broad smile on her face. I think I speak for everyone when I say we're happy for you both, she said, starting a round of applause. As their co-workers offered congratulations and well wishes, Brett felt a wave of relief wash over her. She caught Annabella's eye and saw her own joy reflected there. In the weeks that followed, Brett and Annabella navigated their new reality both at work and in their personal lives. There were challenges, of course, raised eyebrows from a few conservative clients, the occasional whispered comment in the break room, but overall the response was overwhelmingly positive. One evening, as they strolled through the park near their apartment, Annabella turned to Brett with a mischievous glint in her eye. So, I've been thinking? Brett raised an eyebrow. That sounds dangerous. Annabella laughed, swatting Brett's arm playfully. Hush you. I was thinking, how would you feel about taking a vacation? Just the two of us, somewhere we can relax and be ourselves without any work stress. Brett's face lit up. That sounds amazing. Where did you have in mind? Well, Annabella said, pulling out her phone to show Brett a series of photos. I was thinking maybe a beach resort in Hawaii. White sand, crystal clear water, romantic sunsets. As Brett scrolled through the images, her excitement grew. It's perfect, she breathed. When can we go? Annabella grinned. I may have already put in for some time off next month. If you're okay with it, we could book the tickets tonight. Brett threw her arms around Annabella, peppering her face with kisses. Yes, 1,000 times yes. As they walked home, hand in hand, Brett marveled at how much her life had changed in just a few short months. From hiding her true self to openly embracing her identity and her relationship, she felt as if she'd undergone a metamorphosis. The next few weeks passed in a flurry of excitement and preparation for their trip. Brett found herself daydreaming about lazy days on the beach and romantic dinners under the stars. She and Annabella spent their evenings shopping for new swimsuits and sundresses, playfully modeling their choices for each other. The night before their departure, as they lay in bed, Annabella propped herself up on one elbow and gazed at Brett. You know, I never thought I could be this happy, she said softly. Brett reached up to caress Annabella's cheek. Neither did I. Sometimes I'm afraid I'll wake up and this will all have been a dream. Annabella leaned down. It's not a dream, my love. This is our reality, and it's more beautiful than anything I could have imagined. As they drifted off to sleep, Brett's heart was full to bursting with love and gratitude. Whatever the future held, she knew that with Annabella by her side, she could face anything. The Hawaiian sun was just beginning to set as Brett and Annabella strolled along the beach, their bare feet sinking into the warm sand. They'd been on the island for 3 days, and Brett felt more relaxed and content than she had in years. It's so beautiful here, Brett murmured, leaning her head on Annabella's shoulder as they walked. Annabella hummed in agreement, her arm tightening around Brett's waist. It is, but not as beautiful as you. Brett felt her cheeks flush with pleasure. Even after all this time, Annabella's compliments still made her heart race. Flatterer, she teased gently. They continued their walk in comfortable silence, the sound of the waves lapping at the shore providing a soothing backdrop. As they rounded a bend, Brett gasped at the sight before them. A small table had been set up on the beach, adorned with a white tablecloth, flickering candles, and a bouquet of tropical flowers. 2 chairs waited invitingly, and a bottle of champagne sat chilling in an ice bucket. "Annabella, what is this?" Brett asked, her voice filled with wonder. Annabella smiled mysteriously. "A surprise. Shall we?" As they approached the table, a waiter seemingly materialized out of nowhere, pulling out their chairs and pouring 2 glasses of champagne. Brett sat down, still in awe of the romantic setting. "To us," Annabella said, raising her glass in a toast. "To us," Brett echoed, clinking her glass against Annabella's. As they sipped their champagne, the waiter brought out a series of exquisite dishes, fresh seafood, tropical fruits, and decadent desserts. Brett savored every bite, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this surprise than just a romantic dinner. As the meal drew to a close, Annabella reached across the table and took Brett's hands in hers. "Brett, these past months with you have been the happiest of my life. You've shown me what it means to love and be loved unconditionally." Brett felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Annabella?" But Annabella wasn't finished. She stood up, still holding Brett's hands, and slowly lowered herself to one knee in the sand. Brett's breath caught in her throat as she realized what was happening. "Brett, my love, my partner, my best friend," Annabella said, her voice thick with emotion. "Will you marry me?" As she spoke, Annabella produced a small velvet box from her pocket, opening it to reveal a stunning diamond ring. Brett felt as if the world had stopped spinning, narrowing down to this one perfect moment. "Yes!" she whispered, then louder. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes!" Annabella slipped the ring onto Brett's finger, then stood, pulling her into a hug. As they embraced, the sound of applause broke out around them. Brett looked up to see a small group of beachgoers and hotel staff cheering for them. Laughing through her tears, Brett buried her face in Annabella's neck. "I can't believe this is happening," she murmured. Annabella stroked her hair gently. "Believe it, my love. This is just the beginning of our forever." As they walked back to their hotel room, hand in hand, Brett couldn't stop staring at the ring on her finger. It sparkled in the moonlight, a tangible symbol of Annabella's love and commitment. Once in their room, Annabella pulled Brett close, her eyes shining with happiness. "I have one more surprise for you," she said softly. "Another one?" Brett laughed. "I don't think my heart can take much more excitement tonight." Annabella smiled mysteriously and led Brett out onto their private balcony. The view of the ocean was breathtaking, the moon casting a silvery path across the water. "Close your eyes," Annabella instructed gently. Brett complied, her heart racing with anticipation. She heard Annabella moving around, then felt something being placed in her hands. "Okay, you can open them now." Thanks for watching. Check out Patreon if you want to have early access to the other parts. If not, it will be online in a couple of days.